Queen Vera of the Tauran Empire stood before the assembled war council, her violet skin pale with exhaustion, her 4 eyes dimmed by weeks of sleepless strategy sessions that had yielded nothing but retreat after retreat. The holographic map before her showed red markers advancing like a plague across her territory, each one representing a Krell battle fleet that her forces could not stop. "We have lost the outer reach," General Holmes reported, his mandibles clicking in distress. The 4th and 7th fleets were destroyed attempting to hold the line. "We estimate 3 more weeks before they reach the core worlds." Vera closed her eyes. The Krell Dominion had come from beyond the galactic rim, a swarm of insectoid warriors whose technology and numbers overwhelmed everything in their path. For 2 years, the Tauran had fought. For 2 years, they had lost. "What of our allies?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "The Boral Confederacy has withdrawn to defend their own borders. The Nexus Union offers sympathy but no ships." Holmes hesitated. "Your Majesty, the Council suggests we begin evacuation of the civilian populations from the inner colonies." Evacuation. The word tasted like defeat. Vera had ruled for 30 cycles, had inherited an empire at peace, and would leave behind nothing but ashes and refugees. She thought of the billions who trusted her, who looked to their queen for salvation she could not provide. "There must be something," she whispered. "Some strategy we have not considered, some weapon we have not deployed." "We have deployed everything, Your Majesty." The Krell adapt to every tactic. Their queens spawn soldiers faster than we can destroy them. We are simply outmatched. Vera dismissed the council and retreated to the observation deck of her command ship, staring out at the stars that would soon belong to the enemy. She had been taught that a queen must be strong, must never show weakness, but alone in the darkness. She allowed herself a moment of despair. The door chimed. She straightened immediately, composing herself. "Enter." A young adjutant stepped inside, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion. There is a situation in the refugee quarter. A human has requested an audience with you." "A human?" Vera blinked. Humans were the newest species to achieve spaceflight, barely a century into their exploration of the galaxy. They had established a handful of colonies and trading posts, but were considered minor players in galactic affairs. Interesting primarily for their unusual psychology and their strange habit of forming emotional bonds with nearly every species they encountered. "Yes, Your Majesty." "He arrived on a merchant vessel 3 days ago and has been living among the refugees. He claims to have information vital to the war effort. Security has verified he carries no weapons and poses no threat." Vera almost dismissed it. What could a human possibly offer that her finest military minds had not already considered? But something in her, some desperate spark of hope, made her nod. "Send him in." The human who entered was unremarkable by his species' standards, dressed in simple clothes, with brown hair and eyes that held an intensity that surprised her. He bowed somewhat awkwardly. "Your Majesty, my name is David Cole. Thank you for seeing me." "Mr. Cole, my adjutant says you have information about the war." "I will be direct. We have little time, and I have less patience for false hope." "Speak plainly." David nodded. "I have spent the last 3 weeks in the refugee camps, talking to your soldiers, your engineers, your civilians. I have listened to their stories, studied your tactical reports, and analyzed Krell behavior patterns. Your Majesty, you are losing this war because you are fighting it the wrong way." Vera felt anger flash through her. "The wrong way? Do you presume to lecture me on warfare, human? My people have waged war since before your species discovered fire." "Yes," David said simply. "And that is exactly the problem. You are fighting this like a traditional war, with honor and strategy and formation tactics. The Krell do not care about any of that. They are a swarm, a force of nature. You cannot outfight them. Then what do you suggest? Surrender? No. You change the nature of the fight. You make it about something they cannot adapt to. David stepped closer, his voice urgent. Your Majesty, I have read about human history, and I have seen this pattern before. Every time a civilization faces an overwhelming enemy, the ones who survive are not the strongest or the most advanced. They are the ones who refuse to fight fair. Vera stared at him. Explain. David pulled up a datapad and projected images into the air between them. The Krell Dominion operates on a hive structure. Their queens command their forces through pheromone signals and psychic resonance. Your intelligence reports show that their fleets always operate within range of a queen ship. Take out the queen, and the fleet goes into disarray for approximately 6 hours before a new queen can be established. We know this, Vera said impatiently. But the queen ships are the most heavily defended vessels in their armada. We have lost dozens of strike forces attempting to reach them. Because you announce your intentions. Your fleets move in formation, broadcasting their positions. The Krell see you coming and reinforce. But what if you did not announce anything? What if you hid your true intentions until the moment of strike? Cloaking technology is unreliable against their sensors. David shook his head. Not cloaking, misdirection. Your Majesty, humans have a saying, if you want to hide a tree, plant a forest. The Krell track your military vessels, but there are thousands of civilian ships, merchant freighters, refugee transports, moving through your space every day. They ignore them because they pose no threat. Understanding began to dawn on Vera. You want us to hide weapons on civilian vessels. Not just weapons. Strike teams, specialized equipment, everything you need to take out a queen ship. You fill the space around a Krell fleet with ordinary traffic, ships that have been moving along the same routes for weeks, establishing patterns. The Krell learn to ignore them. And then, when their guard is down, 20 of those ships drop their disguises and strike simultaneously. No formation, no coordination, just chaos and violence aimed at one target. That is dishonorable, Vera said, but her voice lacked conviction. Using civilians as cover, abandoning military protocol. David met her eyes. Your Majesty, honor is a luxury of those who can afford to lose. Right now, billions of your people face extinction. Is your honor worth more than their lives? The question cut through her like a blade. Vera thought of the evacuation orders, of the colonies that would be abandoned, of the children who would never know their homeworld. She thought of the Krell swarm advancing, relentless and cruel. My military commanders will never agree to this, she said quietly. Then do not ask them to agree. You are the queen. Command it. Vera turned back to the stars. She had been raised to believe that a queen must be dignified, must uphold tradition, must embody the noble ideals of her people. But David was right. Those ideals would die with her people if she did not act. If we do this, she said, if we abandon our principles, how are we different from the Krell? David was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. The Krell destroy because it is their nature. You would fight dirty because you have something worth saving. That is the difference, Your Majesty. They know nothing but conquest. You know love, art, hope, all the things worth fighting for. That is what makes you better, not your tactics. Vera made her decision. She turned to her adjutant. Summon General Holmes. I want every ship in the civilian fleet cataloged. Begin recruiting volunteers for covert strike teams. Tell them we are going to teach the Krell why they should have feared the Talaran Empire. Over the next 2 weeks, the plan took shape. Merchant vessels were quietly outfitted with military-grade weapons concealed behind false cargo containers. Strike teams trained in the bellies of refugee transports. The Talaran established patterns, sending the same ships along the same routes, until the Krell learned to ignore them entirely. The trap was set at the Battle of Viridian Crossing. A Krell armada advanced toward the core worlds, their queen ship pulsing with the psychic commands that coordinated the swarm. Ahead of them, the usual traffic of civilian vessels fled in apparent panic. Clogging the space lanes in their desperation to escape, the Krell fleet advanced, dismissing the scattered ships as irrelevant. Then, at a signal from Queen Vera herself, 20 of those vessels dropped their disguises. Weapons ports opened. Strike teams launched. The Krell Queen ship found itself under assault from every direction at once. Not by a coordinated military formation they could counter, but by a chaotic swarm of attackers that gave them no time to adapt. The Queen ship died in fire and silence. The Krell fleet, suddenly leaderless, fractured into confusion. Vera watched from her command ship as her conventional forces swept in to finish what the strike teams had started. It was brutal. It was effective. It was nothing like the honorable warfare she had been taught. It was victory. In the months that followed, the Tauren repeated the tactic again and again. The Krell, unable to distinguish civilian ships from threats, began attacking everything indiscriminately, which turned the neutral powers of the galaxy against them. Within a year, the tide had turned. Within 2, the Krell retreated back beyond the rim, bloodied and broken. Queen Vera stood once more on her observation deck, but this time, David Cole stood beside her. The human had refused all hoe.